everyone, how's it going today? Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. If you're out there on social media, Facebook, YouTube, bear with us a minute. We're kind of letting people get settled. Notice that the stream's going, hop in, check us out. We are in a Zoom call right now as well, and we will share the link to get you into the Zoom call if you want to catch a little bit closer view of the action. Just click the link that we share, pop in, and that will also kind of put you on the roadmap so you can join these sessions in the Zoom directly in the future, participate in the conversation more directly. Also, if you do decide to stay out on Facebook and YouTube without joining us on Zoom, we do try to monitor the comments that you might make on the socials, so you can still make comments and sort of interact with the audience, other audience members around the show and stuff like that. And momentarily, I'll introduce the program for those of you that this is your first time and you want to know, hey, how did I find myself here? What am I doing on a Saturday? And I guess I'll just we'll let people into, make sure we're letting people into the Zoom. We got a few stragglers, they're coming in, but I'll kind of get into the intro now to get us getting into the flow. So this is Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. This could include manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our various crafts and to help each other create a ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Master Classes, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, this fine program, for only $16 a month. At the type of coffee I get, that's like 2 cups of coffee. Maybe you get something cheaper, you get a few. But by the end of it, it's just a couple cups of coffee, and you get great content. You get an archive, you get to show up and be part of the community all the time. You get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, archival recordings of over 200 episodes in a member area. Join using the link bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. Don't forget about our podcast version of the show. So this is video, audio. We archive this in the member area, but if you just want to check out the audio, fine. You can check that out solo, driving in the car, in the workshop, doing a workout, doing the dishes, whatever. Come join us. pianotechradio.com. You can find us on all the streamers, Spotify, even YouTube, podcast players, iTunes. And people are checking us out all over the globe, so you're in good company. We've reached #1 status in the performing arts category on iTunes in lots of places, or top 10, top 100. I'm talking places, that are really, I'm really proud we've reached. We're talking about Belgium or France or Germany or Singapore, right? Or Israel. Really cool places. People are touching base with what's going on in this community. We appreciate that audience, and we appreciate if you become a part of it. Also, check out the blog at Substack. That's Piano Technicians Masterclass Substack. You can look it up, you'll find it. And all our socials, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and you can keep abreast of what's going on and keep up with our masterclasses, our private member area content. That's the high level content for the piano technicians, and increasingly we're putting some stuff out there for musicians. We might have a conductor or a composer come and do a masterclass. So come join us and find some of that excellent material that you can't get elsewhere. All right, let's intro our very esteemed guest for today. His name is Corky James. His guitar work has shaped the sound of countless chart-topping hits, from Avril Lavigne's Skater Boy to Jordan Sparks' No Air. A masterful session guitarist and bassist, he's worked with a who's who of the music industry, including Demi Lovato, Kelly Clarkson, Paul Stanley, Leanne Rimes, and more. You've probably heard his playing on the radio, in film soundtracks like The X-Men First Class and More Than a Game, or even on American Idol's most iconic recordings. With decades of experience in the studio and a deep understanding of what makes a song truly come alive, he's one of the unsung heroes behind the music we all love, but we will sing him today. He will be less unsung today. Let's dive in with the one and only Corky James. Welcome to the program, Corky.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being a part of all these wonderful recordings that make culture tick. I was just listening to, I don't know how I got back into it, but I've been listening to Paul Simon's Slip Sliding Away recently. And you know, it's something I've heard my whole life, right? Like when I was a kid, my sister was into it, my mom even loved the song, and only later in my life did I learn about all the incredible musicians that are playing on a track like that. Again, behind the scenes, I believe it's like Steve Gadd on drums. I don't know who else, but that's like a, you know, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover is like an iconic drum beat, all these type of things. And but lately, I've been listening to the track and just being like, wow, just listening to those all the musicians on there, the people that you only read about in the liner notes, and all the really cool stuff they did. Just the little, somebody was humming, you know, somebody had a little part, somebody made a little, you know, they didn't just play the chord change, they did a little bit of a riff, and it makes these things iconic for sure. Um, when
In
did
my
you
era,
yeah, go
excuse me,
ahead.
the liner notes were as important as while you're listening. If you
Yes.
reading who the players were, and they would put the players down. So that's how I got probably my interest in wanting to be a recording musician,
Uh,
because I'd all these names and I'd see the people who got repeated. You know, I
mhm.
remember um, Tommy Tedesco was one of the early session guys, and all the guys on Motown, and then the guys on Muscle Shoals. So yeah, the liner notes just went, and I would, even after the album was done, I was still rereading those liner notes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting, you know, living through different eras of music, the music industry, the recorded music, performing music, how it changes. I mean, we've had some guests recently. You know, increasingly people are getting into like video game music composition, you know, and um that's going to change the way music is enjoyed and created. It already has, you know, a lot of kids now, their first song that they learn on a piano, it's a song from a video game that they played. But also the format of the music is changing. We were talking about it on a previous program where it's music that changes, you know, with the game, right? So you go into a different room and the music changes.
Right.
It makes these subtle changes. So it changes the compositional landscape, the compositional approach, you know, the variety of moods that you have to set within one piece. And it also opens the door, especially with AI, to having soundtracks to our lives, you know, that change with, you know, as we
Sure.
walk into a different room, there could be a different track that plays, you know, AI created or composer inspired, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
things have changed a lot, and but I think you're right. The game music, film music, they those are all influences, and vice versa on pop music. One of the things that I find really funny with pop music, listen to intros. Like even if you listen to a song I played on the Complicated, listen how long that intro is. And I remember I was debating an intro with a producer, and he wanted to make it longer, and I was like, you know, intros are kind of over. They
mhm.
now vocal will just start. You're right in that. I'm going to guess, but I'm say the intro of Complicated is probably at least 40 seconds. And you go to the top 40 now, put on a song and see how many seconds the intros are. It's 2, 3 seconds. I mean,
Right.
it's fast. And you know, look at commercials. Again, back in, you know, the 60s, 70s, a commercial might be a minute long. Now they're 5 seconds, and then there'll be 10 commercials, you know, just boom, boom, boom.
Mhm.
And they went across, and people seem to, they figured out that, you know, we can pay attention to 5 seconds easier than we can pay attention to 60 seconds, I think,
Mhm.
at least my guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, this, I was just talking to somebody about this. It's a little bit tangent, and then I'll go back to my what initially inspired this topic for me. But it's interesting that social media, like I'm sure you see this being out there in Los Angeles and being in the industry, you meet you when you meet people in that are in social media in person that are putting like these 5 minute, 5 second clips or whatever. They're creating a little clip that goes for like 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. It's going viral and they're famous and all this stuff. But you meet them in person and you try to have a conversation that lasts longer than 30 seconds and they're dead, man. They're just,
Yeah.
they can't tread water.
I see,
So
like you're talking about, I see them and they're over and I'm like, wait a minute. There's no beginning, middle, end, there's no arc and I'm like, that can't be everything that they intended. But then I guess what you're saying is that.
yeah, maybe he's put it on loop. The reason I, got into the evolution of things is it is interesting having been through these different periods to try to reflect ways that we can harken back to the, what was good about it, like to the liner notes concept. You're reminding me like, oh man, yeah, I miss that. I miss that experience of listening to music and you would sit there with the record, you would sit there with it and you would want to just listen, but you'd want something to do and you'd pick up, and you just start reading, right? It's kind of like when you're eating a box of cereal and you start reading on the side. It's
Yeah.
just sort of a natural progression, but it takes you to another world. It engages you in the artist's world more. They would have the lyrics written on their handwriting or something, and it would really kind of get your imagination going and get you enthralled in it. So hopefully we'll have more opportunities. I'm looking forward to ways that people both incorporate new things, but also bring in some of the nostalgia in a way that that make sure we're not robbed of those opportunities anymore, for sure. So I would love to dive a little bit further back. We often do this on the show, often early in the program, just to like really set the context. You kind of did it a little bit for us, listening to the records as a young person, looking at the liner notes. What got you started at all in music, and how did you know you were going to make a career of it?
Well, I believe both my parents were musical. My dad was a square dance caller for probably 75 years.
Nice.
And they did round dances, which is a whole different thing. Square dancing is one thing, round dancing. So we had music all the time. Our home, my father was a electrical engineer, worked for the Department of Navy. So we woke up to a blaring stereo hi-fi system playing what I guess would be kind of lounge, very eclectic lounge music.
Mhm.
And that woke us up. That's how we woke up. And then they're square dancing. My mom was an excellent piano player. She then went to organ. So I heard music all the time. And one day I saw Elvis Presley on TV and he was holding something and it just fascinated me. And I remember telling my mom, I want to do that. She insisted I start on piano. So I played piano for a year. And then to the day, I said, okay, I'm ready for the guitar. And then just kept it up.
Wonderful.
I always say to young people starting, what's the key? And the key to me is just you don't give up. You're going to have ups and downs, but you got to keep going. But like, the guitar itself, it physically hurts. The string.
Mm-hmm. That was one thing that's been an obstacle for me. I'm a little bit of, I mean, I can endure, listen, I could run a marathon. I ran 4 marathons 4 weeks in a row, but for some reason I can't stand putting my fingers on those guitar strings.
The thing. And back when I was teaching, I would always say, okay, you've got to play every day, even if it's for 5 minutes. It's got to be every single day. And eventually it'll stop hurting, but it's hard. People get rejected and then they go, oh, forget this. I'll do something else. So, don't give up and just persevere with it. And eventually it'll pay off.
Yeah. Also on that note, I've noted for myself when I'm, trying to enter a difficult domain and I'm running into those obstacles, you let those obstacles indicate to you, this is a point where other people are getting filtered out. So if I can stick through it, the competition gets less complicated, you know.
Yeah,
A lot of people are gonna, a lot of people are gonna give up. If I want to give up here, a lot of other people are gonna give up here, and then I'm gonna be left. And
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's great. Um, Tell us about you mentioned the piano. You started on the piano. Uh,
yeah.
Mostly you're a guitar bass guy. What's your relationship with the piano? Have you continued over the years? Do you own a piano? Is it
I
more tangential to your operations?
I have keyboards here that are MIDI, and when I need a keyboard part, I can play. Um, but mostly I'm just creating sounds or harmonies or whatever. It's not like, a classical piece or anything like that. But a few years ago, I thought, I should get back to piano and learn to play it better, because the piano is the orchestra, and if you can have a concept of chords and relationships with the melody and the bass and all that, but I didn't do it. So, but
Hmm,
no, and it was great, and I'm really happy that my mom pushed me to do that, because it certainly helped.
wonderful. Any favorite tracks of yours that have stayed with you, throughout life? Maybe one with inspirational bass. Do you have your favorite bass players or bass tracks or, stuff like that?
Um, well, first thing that came to my mind was Led Zeppelin. I think it's called the Lemon Song. The bass part in that I just think is masterful. John Paul Jones, Paul McCartney. I still think his bass lines are just genius. Yeah, a bass is a funny instrument. I don't really consider myself a bass player, although I play bass on almost everything that I record. But then eventually, I'm going to want to have somebody come in and make it make,
A real pro.
make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But for me, in order, what's important is vocal, drums, bass. Those three things gotta have them in at least in roughly in that order. But sometimes it's drums first, sometimes it's bass first. But vocal, it has to be there for me to be able to do anything on guitar. If those elements are missing, and I actually had a track recently that didn't have any of that, and I'm like, I called the producer. I just said, I can't play to this. I need a vocal. I need the concept. But bass is, as you mentioned, is just so important.
Hmm. And yeah, Paul McCartney stands out. I
Yeah,
saw a cool YouTube video a few weeks back, and they kind of did like a little analysis of the evolution of Paul McCartney's playing over time. And I had never really uh paid attention to this, so it's kind of cool. Maybe other people have, but he really just started out with just kind of like play the bass on beat one, play the bass note on beat one, maybe beat three or something like that. And if you listen throughout the evolution, he starts to throw in, some licks, and starts to make it interesting. And sort of as he advances in his career, the bass lines get less and less just like anybody could play it, and they become more and more iconic, and it's pretty
yeah.
cool. Um, what about guitar? Favorite guitarists
I
or
have a list.
tracks or yeah.
Well, I have a list of about 70 influences that I keep in my email, and they're all favorites, because at some point, all of them did something that was impactful to me, to hearing it, to listening, how they approach tone, feel, really kind of intangible things that you can't be taught. That it's something you've got to
Mm,
know first of all,
mm,
and then say, okay, what can I do feel wise or tone wise or something harmonically? What can I do that I'm relating to? And this is, like recently, Vic Flick. Uh, that name wasn't in my vocabulary 5 years ago, but he's the guitar player that played the 007 theme. And
mm,
he's also played on a ton of other things. There's a song called Beat Girl. So when I got back into surf music, you listen to these masters from that era, Beat Girl, 007, and John Barry utilized the guitar, which is how it kind of got into spy music and then in Western music. And those guys, they're Tommy Tedesco I mentioned before. There's so many, you know, even before you get to the Jimi Hendrixes and the Jimmy Pages and Jeff Beck's, Wes Montgomery, all the more contemporary ones. It's like there's a whole multiple generation prior.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the surf guitar music, and you mentioned your interest in this, and that might be a good segue. Of course, we'd love to hear. We've heard some of these tracks we've already mentioned. We're not going to play them for obvious reasons. There's probably some copyright issues we're going to have to deal with, but we could play. We would love to play some tracks from your latest album with a group called the CJs, called The Touch of Terror. And I'm gonna play A Touch of Evil. I'll do a screen share, audio share. I'll play the track from Spotify. We'll get a look at the album cover on Instagram here when we share it.
Cool.
Any background you want to give on this?
This band started as a different band, and like I said, right as COVID was kind of locking everybody down, I was kind of desperate to play, and I do sessions in my studio, which I'm in right now. But everything, you know, kind of was slowing down and interruptions. So I thought I need to look around, see what other musicians are around. So I stumbled upon a bass player who wanted to start a surf band. So we managed to start the surf band, and I didn't want to only do covers, you know, the standard covers, you know, Walk Don't Run and whatever. So I started arranging, and next thing I know, I'm thinking, geez, I really like arranging, and I like what I'm coming up with. So the bass player and the drummer, they felt like, well, that's not the direction they wanted to go. They were looking for something a little more traditional surf and a little more intense, you know, maybe more punk elements. So we parted ways, and then I thought, well, I'm going to continue, and so created the CJs, and I've already arranged about 26 songs. So I'm planning to release 4 EPs with 6 songs each, and then just kind of see where it goes from there. So that's all of these songs are my arrangements, and Touch of Evil, if you listen to the original, you won't even be able to tell where mine came from, because Mancini wrote a couple of themes, and I twist those themes into a guitar idea and a song, a surf song. So it you know, depends on how interested anyone else is to see how the arrangement process would go. But I enjoy taking something that I hear and then twist it into something, you know, different.
Great. All right. Well, we'll share the Instagram, and that'll give us a chance to look at the album cover. I'll play the track as well. Here we go. You'll have to let me know if there's any issues while I'm playing it, but we should be good. Here's a Touch of Evil by the CJs. Our little manual fade out
Cool.
there. Yeah. Nice. Um, yeah, surf, man. It's so fun. It's actually, I forget. It reminds me of for some reason playing video games in the 90s. There was some, I want to say it was like some Nintendo volleyball game or something, and then
Mm.
they had like surf music in it, and that was just like you got that. But it's it's so funny how iconic the sound is, you know, and how it's associated with the surf culture. But it also kind of like has this, you know, like you said, like there's like that 007 kind of vibe, which is also like mysterious in a way. And it
Yeah.
almost goes in almost like the album cover you have, it's almost like there's a little bit of not creepy, but that direction, you know, it
Yeah.
reminds me of like David Lynch or something, right?
Hmm.
It's a kind of like weird vibe to it as well, which you don't necessarily get from
Surf
surfers.
surf music. Well, first of all, surfers hated surf music,
Okay.
and there's going to be a documentary movie that I've already seen, but it hasn't been officially released, and it goes through the whole history of surf music. Surf music is so uh, interesting. You have to peel back errors and peel back other genres, subgenres. You got Western, spy, punk, um, melodic, fun, and like beach type music. Even though Beach Boys is not surf music, a
Mhm.
lot of people not. It's pop music that took place early days, took place on the beach. But surf music is worldwide, everywhere. There's one of the top bands is from Russia. They're called Mezerchubs. One of the top bands here is called Slacktone. Incredible band. Um, Low Straight Jackets. You got a band from Italy, Surfer Joe. You've got a band from Denmark, Tremolo Beer Gut. And these bands are really good and just original arrangements, but I haven't gotten that. I have to finish this leg of the idea before I get to my originals. But surf music is it's just the whole surf genre is like a subculture, and
Hmm.
it's crazy, and people are just passionate about it. And I kind of got into it just for something to do. And next thing I know, I'm learning how much I did not know about it. And thankfully, I've met a lot of really good people. Dave Arnson from Insect Surfers, which is a band originally from DC. They're in LA now. He's they've been together, I think, 45 years, which is like, wow, I didn't even know. Most people didn't even know surf music went back that far.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
in the, I guess, early 60s.
Wow. Well, that must be really tight. Um, Tell me what it's like. So you're in there and out in LA, you're a session musician. You know, a lot of what you're doing is just kind of going in a air conditioned, you know, windowless room and
Right.
soundproof room and doing your thing. When you put together something like this, especially these days, you can go a lot of different directions. You can just, it's all just studio music. I just want to put out an album, maybe like license it or whatever. You can go a different direction where you do that, but also you play some gigs. What's been your approach to this? Are you getting out there and playing gigs with it? Is it just studio music? How are you approaching the sort of band, having a band side of this whole thing, given the rest of your career context?
Well, originally I wanted to be in a band and record. I joined a band called Cock Robin in the late 80s, and they had a lot of success in Europe, France. So I toured with them. I did one record with them. And that record really kind of taught me. That was probably my first, big major band and environment, pro studios and pro players. And everybody was incredible. John Pierce on bass, Pat Masalato on drums, and the two main singers in the band. And I thought, well, this is it. I'll do this the rest of my life, which is funny to say, but no, it only lasted a couple years, and then they got dropped, and then they broke up, and then next thing you know, it's like, well, geez, now what? So I thought, okay, well, maybe I should start a band. So musicians and singers got together and you start a band. At one time, I think I was in 6 original bands in LA, and we're doing gigs and shows and trying to get signed, and almost got signed once, and then that fell through. And I did some touring, and then I thought, no, I don't want to do that. So let's, what do I really enjoy? And the thing that I really enjoy is being able to create something original on somebody's song. And so I started doing sessions, and I would do sessions for nothing, for free. I would drive, an hour, and then go do a session and not get paid. And I was fine with it, because I love doing it. And I even though I didn't think of it at the time, it was like going to school. You don't get paid to go to school, you pay to. So I was basically paying. And next thing I know, I started to things started to click, and I got good enough where people would call me to hire me. And then, then you just, there's a lot of luck. Somebody hears you, and then they refer you to someone, and then you record, and then, wow, it got on the radio. How did that happen? So, I'm the first to admit there's a lot of luck involved.
Yeah, we have I'm not sure if you know the guy. His name's Jim Wilson. He's a piano tuner out there in Los Angeles. Do you happen to know him?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
He worked with an artist that I worked with, Lily Hayden, and I met him while he was tuning her piano.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, but similar, for him, he put out this autobiography. I don't know if you know that recently. And did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you got to check it out. You got to check it out.
Yeah.
It's a great book. So it's like a piano tuner's autobiography, and he got into we had him on the show, and I've kind of become friends with him. And yeah, he just arrived from Texas, where he was from, some small town in Texas, and the first night he arrived, he ended up at some bar, and he's hanging out with the session guys, basically, some of the session
Yeah.
guys. And one thing leads to another, and it's like he's tuning for Elton John and Paul McCartney and all these folks, and it's just, there's that little bit of magic, that little bit of luck, and then it has a big leverage if you stick with it and you follow it along.
Yeah.
Do you know Scott? Do you know Scott Page, sax player?
No, I don't.
Okay. He also, that's one of the guys that Jim met when he came. He played with I can't remember. He played with Pink Floyd quite a bit. But some other groups as well that are pretty well known. Yeah, I do know some session musicians, I know some musicians out in LA just from some of my networking. I know this guy named Will Henschel, as a bass player. He was in a very successful pop band as well. But we'll talk about that offline a little bit. I want to take the opportunity to pop on over and just kind of take a look at your website real quick. We'll also show a fun photo of you of an Avril Lavigne as well, just to kind of give even a little bit more context as to the work that you've done and the work that you're doing. And then additionally, as and after we do that, so here's you and Avril Lavigne. Man, what is this?
This we were doing all her the hits that time. We process of recording Complicated, I'm With You, Skater Boy, and a couple others that were on that album, the Let Go album. And I think she's 16 years old there.
Wow.
And she was so sweet. She was very quiet, and just a sweet girl, and just had an amazing voice, and was just gifted right from the start.
So now, was this before, like, did she have hits before A Day Like This? So this is just, hey, let's do this record, and like, yeah, cool, she seems cool, sure, let's make a record. Maybe you got paid. Yeah, I'm sure you got paid something. Yeah, maybe you didn't. Maybe that was one of the free ones, I don't know. But
this was definitely a paid one, because she signed, and I'm trying to remember the guy's name that signed her, but they already knew they were going to build something behind her,
Yeah.
and they had, like, the deal back in those days, the record company would call different producers, all the big shots, and say, we've got this girl, we want you to write 3 songs, and here's $10,000. You can hire all the musicians, and then write the song, record it, and we'll consider it. So
Mm.
that everybody, as soon as somebody is good, like her, all the. Are like, sure, I'll. So then a guy like me, the producers that would hire me, well, they can pay me a demo fee.
Mm.
And if the record company chooses it, now you'll get paid a union scale fee.
Mm.
So but that was the formula then. That's
Mm.
not the formula now. Now,
Sure.
now the formula is you get zero, and you like it. But anyway, so we were recording songs that the producers, Scott Spock, Lauren Christie, Graham Edwards, they wrote songs and they produced them. Mostly Scott produced it, but all 3 of them were involved. And so when they came up with Complicated, they'll get a sense of, hey, we've got a really great song. We want to send it to the label.
Mm.
So when we recorded that, they didn't have much there. So I'm Scott says, well, we need an intro. Can you play something? And so I'm like, okay. And so I play a few parts, and then his genius was that he assembled all my ideas. And if you listen to Complicated at the beginning, you'll hear all these different guitars that kind of sound random, but they all kind of intertwined. So that was the song that the label said, okay, now we're at ground zero. Here is the song that everyone else has to use this as our blueprint for the rest of the album.
Mm.
So once they did that, now all the other songs that don't fit this idea, they get tossed, and then the rest is, they just keep coming up writing songs. And Skater Boy was Avril's idea because she wanted something more punkish and less, slick, less polished.
Right.
And I remember clearly that they just were like, well, we don't know how this is going to fly, but let's see what we can come up with. And we recorded a bunch of guitars, and next thing you know, it's a massive hit.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to take a listen to it and think through that too. And by the way, so you mentioned um, that what was I going to say? You came up with that. So that what you came up with there was on like a demo, and then you re-record it, right?
No, no,
No,
no. There's really no demo. It's just you start
it's just
recording.
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course
That.
you're talking about producers that it's all the gear is top pro gear, and they would do a studio. They would build a studio in a home or somewhere, and then that became their studio. We did a bunch of records in that particular house. I think they had 4 studios total from the beginning to when they stopped doing records. But no, it's all final. Like, you
Mm.
rarely would. I mean, they might do a rough mix to send to the label,
Hmm.
but they knew that, okay, this is going to be
This is the
the
track.
track. Admit.
It's fun to hear the behind the scenes on that. Um, I wanted to get a sense here to just visually too. It's kind of fun to just see all the different, not all of them, but some selected from your discography. You could see these
Yeah,
albums with Avril Lavigne, also Liz Phair, and just a bunch of really impressive artists. There's Kelly Clarkson there. Um, and additionally, let's see here. Yeah, you can get a sense. Let me zoom in on this. So you American Idol, Aretha Franklin, Bobby, Avril Lavigne, Demi Lovato, Katy Perry. So tell me, I would love to. So I want to use this as a jumping off point. Michael Jackson, A Place with No Name. What, how did that come to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did a session for a producer that I can't remember his name, but he's a really celebrated producer. And I think I don't even know that we were doing that song, but I guess they used a guitar part that I played and then imported it into that track.
Hmm.
And honestly, I don't even know if that ever got released.
Hmm. That's fun though.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot like do you remember Kevin Gilbert? He did a
Uh,
version of the Steve Miller song Space Cowboy, The Joker.
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then, like 30 years later, I get a message. A guy said, "Oh, you're on this. You played the slide guitar on this." And I'm like, I had no idea. And when I listened to it, I thought, I don't know, I don't think that's me. It must have been somebody, good. Like I don't think I would sound that good. I'm not really much of a slide player. But then he goes, "No, your name is right here." It's like, and I'm like, damn, I would not have known that. And I don't even know if that's available somewhere, but it may have just gotten released in the last few years. The Joker by Steve Miller, and then Kevin Gilbert covered it.
Hmm. How do you approach the session work? It's an interesting place to be, right? It's like you're not supposed to shine too much, right? You're supposed to shine just enough. And I can imagine there's some guys that get in there like, oh, check this out, check that out. And like, okay, dude, we're gonna get somebody else because this is not
Those guys,
about you.
yeah, those guys keep working because of what they want, and
Yeah.
I can't do what those guys do.
Mm,
There's some guitar players that just do so many things, can't do any of it. But what I can do is listen to the song, and I hear gaps and holes. I hear places that need to be ramped up. I hear things that need to be ramped down, to be understated or to be powerful. And like, no, you got to bring it right here. Bring something. And the producers that liked me and wanted me, that's why they called me. And the guys that can really play, I mean, I can play, but I can't. There's just these guys are just unbelievable. They're virtuosos, and I'm far from that. I'm a if it means anything, I'm a song guy. I like Ringo Starr. I would consider a song drummer, and he's playing for the song, and that's it. And so
mhm.
every part he is for that song, and I feel like he influenced me. And musicians like him, whether they're playing piano, organ, keyboards, or parts, I always that I latched onto were hooks. And any good song and any hit song is going to have at least a few hooks. I don't know if anyone's researched that, but the string parts are hooks. A snare beat can be a hook.
Mhm.
Um, and so I latched on to all these hooks, and so I wanted to be a guy. Well, let me come up with my own hook, and I just was able to do it. And it's not super hard. A lot of people can do that, but that was something that I enjoyed.
Yeah, it actually sounds fun. Like I've thought about, what it would be to do session type of work. And maybe I found it a little bit intimidating because you kind of have to be on, but at the same time, it's a recording session, right? So you're not in front of an audience and you can maybe do a second take or whatever. It's just, it
Oh,
can't take forever.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. My favorite thing is when like a producer has one or two things that he really I need this. I need so you look for a tone or a guitar or what range, and then they say, okay, let's just let this track play and just play something. and then I'm just reacting to. I hear the vocal, I hear the other parts, or if depending on if they haven't done any, but then I'm just reacting to what I'm hearing, which is I feel like that's something that I'm strong at, is reacting. If there's nothing for me to react to, then it's like I'm just, I don't know. I can't just pretend like, okay, I'm going to pretend like there's a vocal here. No, I gotta hear it.
Right. You gotta respond to something
Yeah,
that's already got a vibe or something and
yeah,
add to it. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah. I think I would enjoy, the more you talk about it, I would enjoy, because I like coming up with creative parts, and creative riffs or licks or whatever.
yeah.
And oftentimes I could write full compositions, but also I don't know. It's just like I don't necessarily have. I don't want to say I don't have the patience. Maybe I just don't have the time or whatever to just really flash something out. But in bands, I feel like I'm the guy where they're like, "Oh yeah, play that. That was great. Do that." And I think that would be a fun part. And then to hear it on the radio or in a movie soundtrack or something, it's very rewarding. I think. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. The complicated was the first thing that I heard on the radio, and I just could not believe it.
Yeah,
And
that's amazing.
it's still amazing that, although I don't listen to pop radio stations at all, but
In a day like today, probably hear it in Starbucks every once in a while.
yeah, there's a movie I just got paid for. I think it was complicated. A movie called Time Cut, and I think it just came out in the last 6 months or so. So those songs still resonate somehow, and it's amazing. It's thrilling, actually, to know that something like that means something to so many people.
Yeah. Tell me, so we got about 10 minutes left in our conversation here. We've been talking a little bit about being the studio musician. I would love to talk about a little bit different side of that, being in Los Angeles. So you're in this interesting, I've lived in New York. I know a lot of people in Los Angeles and spent significant time there. Um, there's other musical cities. You got Nashville, which, of course I know of, but I've never been there. You've got, of course, where is it in Texas, South by
Austin.
Southwest. Austin, you've got Austin. Austin's got a lot of different things going on, including music. But these different places have a different musical context. New York, of course, people are doing recordings, but it's a different type of thing. Los Angeles is kind of like where people go to make it big, to have a crossover into like film and entertainment and image and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about being there over the years and where you are today in it, where maybe you see where it goes from here?
Well, like I said before, I had been in so many different original bands, writing original songs, getting out and playing all the club scene. And at that time, there was probably like 30 big places that you needed to play. And one of them was Echo Park, one of them, the Garage, just, Club Lingerie, that was a big one. Gazzari's. I mean, just I can't. There's so many, and so it was real vibrant. And there's a lot but there were so many bands. So you count, you would be like one of 6 bands in one night, and then so that they do that 7 nights a week. So you do the math over, a month, how many bands are playing at all these clubs. So then you really just learn, like, wow, this is really, you're an anthill, and trying to make a mark, and be somewhat unique, it was really hard, and none of the bands that I was in ever made it. And was I'm not saying it was disappointing, because it was exciting and fun, and playing live is phenomenal. I love playing live, but finally it got to the point where I was like, geez, do I really just want to keep beating my head against a rock, or can I find some other way to get some fulfillment out of music? And and like I said, I was lucky to meet the right people, that they heard me. Matter of fact, the Matrix heard me playing in a live band, and they thought, hey, this guy, let's see if we can get him to come over and record. So LA might be unique to that. Like, how many producers are in Austin that even if they hear a band, well, are they going to have anything for them to play? So, I will say that I did get some good exposure that possibly, you know, was impactful in where I ended up. But um, I don't know. I just remember, like, what do we got to do? You do that for several years, playing every few weeks, writing new songs, and then you play and you go to this club, this club, this club. It's a rat race.
Yeah, that's an interesting side of it. Yeah, I never thought about that, just how, I mean, from the acting side of it, I think it's even more clear, all those people go
That
there to make it big and become an actor. And but there's a musical side of it as well. And it's also just popular, so populated with everybody that wants to make a dream come true. And
just comparison, though, all those clubs that I mentioned, I don't think there's a single one that's still open.
hmm
So, I've been way out of that scene. I stopped touring in, I think it was 1992. And I had I toured for about 4 years, and I just thought, no, I don't want to do this for any anymore. I've done it, and it's fine. But there were clubs back in the early 90s, but I stopped doing that. I just went right to doing sessions, do private event type gigs, and which I do enjoy. I still enjoy those, but not the original band dream. And I really wonder if those if it's still around. I don't know. It could be. I wouldn't know though.
You mean like the original band Dream Scene?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
around? Oh, I'm sure it's around. I'm sure. I mean, yeah, but it's got to be changing so much. I mean, one thing that wasn't around when you were doing that is the Instagram influencer scene, or whatever, or TikToker scene, that's a scene now.
Yeah, but back then you don't even have a cell phone. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
you don't have any photos from all those tours and things that I did and the sessions that I did. That all of that would have been great Instagram
hmm
fodder, but didn't have the technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a magical place in Los Angeles, and
Can be.
it can be. Well, it's the highs and the lows,
Yeah.
of it all. And it's definitely, what I enjoy about it is because I've been more recently involved, actually in the tech scene, the tech and the art scene there actually.
Mm.
Um, and so I've been fascinated to, kind of explore that's going on in the first place. There's some things going on in tech and entrepreneurship and the arts, like visual arts, digital art, a lot of cool stuff going on there. I mean, of course you've got the stuff that's known, you got the Getty Museum and stuff like that, but still there's like a scene of that's bubbling up. And I feel like um a long time ago, I did a musical project myself, recorded a bunch of music, and I call it daily wiki music. And I force myself every day to read the Wikipedia article of the day, which is kind of like a
Mm.
random sequence of articles, and then write a song inspired by it, record it, and post it. So all these
Wow.
random songs. I've got songs about, Mars and Jupiter, but I also have a song about like the movie Gremlins 2 or lead to nitrate. So this kind of like random stuff. And I think it was while I was doing that project, I read an article. I don't know if it was for one of the songs or just reading about the West. and the sort of are about California, you know, and there's this theme in California of, you know, pushing the boundary, pushing the edge, right? Searching for the dream. You know, the East Coast is like established, you know, at least these days, you know, it's the established, it's the old money, it's the, you know, the cut and dried, it's the old business, all that stuff. And still as you move west, it becomes more about that dream, you know. And what I find fascinating about all these different facets is that it it gets it's saturated with this theme everywhere. There's the theme of the dream in making the movie. Of course, the movie's not real. It's a movie, right? But there's
Right.
also the entrepreneurship side of it. Of course, you know, you've got some crazy kooky idea, Airbnb or, you know, something where it seems like a nutty thing and you dream about it, make it big, and oh, maybe it can, right? And that permeates all these places, the music side of it. But there is a side of it where you go, oh, maybe that was just a little dream that I had.
Well, like you said, like
It
East
was fun
Coast,
to have, but it was a
yeah,
dream.
East Coast to me is like what you said. It was closed, and so you know all the old money and all the established things that happened decades, you know, centuries before. Whereas California seemed open, and it's like, oh wow, we can go there, and anybody could play at there. You can get in the band there, or you can, you know, write a song and somehow it'll all work. And that's probably the dream that you're referring to. That even subliminally, I felt because I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, just outside of DC, and it seemed closed. Everything seemed like the band scene, everything there. I didn't relate to it. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And LA was like, wow, this is everyone's here, and everyone. You call up somebody, hey, you want to go play? Yeah, let's go play. And you learn. You're all learning. You're all, you know, being inspired. And I don't know how many other cities can claim to be quite like Los Angeles in that way. It is pretty special, actually.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful story that you've shared, and we appreciate you opening up the doors to for us to join you along your journey a little bit today. We'll sign off here soon. You know, we've get to your website and so forth. But you can recap it. Like, where should people go to find out more? Any words of wisdom, last things you want to share before we outro and say goodbye for the day?
Well, I got deactivated on Facebook, so you can't find me there.
Oh, okay.
Even though I keep trying to figure out how to do it. I think I got hacked, and
Oh,
somebody put a two-factor authorization,
oh,
and
okay.
I tried to get on,
Oh,
and they
so it
say,
was
well,
you weren't deplatformed for some sort of
no, I don't think so. And
the
they
Biden administration didn't cancel your profile or something.
no, yeah, I think they saw my logo, my, you know, the C and the J,
Yeah.
and they said, oh, it's copyright infringement, and I said,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I hired somebody, and they came up with that,
Right,
and
right.
then I never, and then I can't get in, and next thing you know,
Okay.
it's like, so, but Instagram, Corky James LA, and that I'm pretty active on that, although I'm not like somebody younger who would be posting 10 times a day, but I post occasionally on that. And I have a website that I don't do much. It doesn't get updated often. The CJ's band, that's on Bandcamp, Spotify, Amazon, Apple. You can find it there. Um, in words of wisdom, I always come back to don't give up. Just go be you, be the best you, because nobody else can be a better you. And it took me a long time to realize that I can't be Jimi Hendrix, but I can be me, and I can be Corky James better than Jimi Hendrix could be. So I thought, okay, learn how to be yourself.
Awesome. I love it. And that reminds me, definitely go check out Jim Wilson's autobiography. I think you'll like it. It's
I will.
got some themes like that in there as well.
Yeah.
Um, All right. Well, we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. We want to thank, of course, Corky for joining us today, as well as anybody who's joined in the Zoom call or out there on the streams. Um, and as always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclass. This is cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And if you want to subscribe to this program, Piano Tech Radio, go for it. $16 a month, pretty simple. Get the recording of today's session, our member area, auto registration for each week's new session. Sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. And don't forget about the podcast, pianotechradio.com, the Substack blog, lots of good information there. The socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And